Hello, and welcome back to another segment of If I Had the Power to Time Travel, take over the MCU, how would I remake it? My name is Sean. This is my suggestion for MCU's Iron Man 2. I think that the first scene in the Iron Man 2 movie should have been quick cuts of Iron Man in action. Explosions, Tony screaming to get people's adrenaline pumping. And I'm talking about, when I say people, I mean the audience who's watching this movie. The real Iron Man 2, however, opens up with Ivan Vanko building a suit in Russia. That's fine, but it's cold, distant. We don't feel Tony's rage because we haven't seen it and what's driving him. So here's my fix. My preferred opening scene would have Iron Man assaulting the Zodiac at Japan, or in Japan, a facility. 2 years after his mother, Maria Stark's death. As I stated when I put forth my suggested preferred Iron Man 1 movie, I suggested that movie should end with Tony Stark's mother, Maria Stark, dying at the hands of assassin Spy Master. So, in this follow up movie of Iron Man 2, you have Tony attacking said facility in Japan, chasing after Zodiac, one of the members of Zodiac, saying, "You killed my mother, you killed my mother." Tony's flying, trying to evade, launch missiles, guns, stuff like that, evading explosions while chasing after Scorpio, who laughs all the way as he escapes through a magical portal to a dimension called, in the Marvel Comics, Ankar, where he knows he has safety. Then we go back to a different scene where we are reintroduced to the character of Sien, daughter of Yinsen. So Sien, she's in Japan. She's trying to help out Tony Stark, who's invading this facility belonging to the Zodiac. This scene does three things. Establishes Tony's emotional state immediately. Shows us, the audience, the villain and their powers right away. And it grounds the story in consequences. Maria's death matters. That's what the focus of the scene is about. So now we move on to the next scene, I titled The Merv, which is a scene that comes before the first scene. Now, the Merv is a device that Tony Stark designed and built for S.H.I.E.L.D. in the military. It exists with other Mervs on a space platform. It deploys from that platform and it goes to wherever it's needed or programmed to go, carrying supplies, weapons, and it also has arms for carrying needed cargo from point A to point B. Suyin acts as the Merv to pick up Iron Man. When I say pick him up, I mean transport him from America to Japan. Something that happened in or was put forth as a suggestion for my Iron Man 1. Because Iron Man armor can't go that far from America to Japan. It needs a secondary support system. So Merv acts as an Uber, Lyft ride for Iron Man. But much like the part one story I did when I introduced the Merv, he has a hard time connecting with it. Sue fixes that by jamming Iron Man's system so the joints lock up. That way Tony can't move, because she theorized Tony's constant movements is what's causing the connection sequence process from not going forward properly. So now we move on to the next scene. Since we've covered how Tony got to Japan, and then we talked about Tony and what he did in Japan, which was attack a facility belonging to the Zodiac, going after Scorpio, we're going to talk about Su Yin and what she's doing secretly. While he's in Japan, she's in another area of Japan contacting Howard Stark while communicating with Tony Stark on his mission. She's giving him files on Iron Man. Sue is giving Howard Stark files on Iron Man to let Howard know what Tony's doing behind his back. Why? Because she's going in a different place in her life. She wants to get away from Tony Stark and his obsession over Iron Man and violence because she's pursuing the medical field to become a doctor like her father. And what's the Hippocratic oath of a doctor? Do no harm. So she's done with this. So she just hasn't told Tony about this. This is how she chooses to separate herself from Tony, by going to his father secretly. So then his father goes to Tony's dorm, college dorm. Yes, he's in college now. No longer in the school in Japan. He's now back in America and attending college. And he quickly downloads some files at his college dorm on Iron Man. Getting back to Sue for a minute, we see an engagement ring on her finger. And no, she's not being engaged to Tony Stark. She's being engaged to someone else. I want you to keep that in mind because there is a medical situation involving Tony scenes later where Sue meets Tony in the story. Okay, now we're going to move on to something else, which is the Whiplash cousins. Now, in the movie, Whiplash was bank of. In my version, I want to treat Whiplash a little differently. Here's the story. Scorpio goes to Vakov, and I'll explain Vakov. And they set up some sort of arrangement that involves him and his distant Italian cousin, Lena, who we'll explain a little later. Okay, back to the dorm room. After losing Scorpio, who escapes to Ankar, he comes back home to his college dorm room in Boston, Massachusetts, where he's attending MIT. And he finds his father waiting for him there. His father confronts him about being Iron Man, and he tells him it's over. I am no longer allowing you to do this anymore with your life. It's done. He also tells him that Homer, a computer program that was part of my first Iron Man 1 movie, which is what he expected to greet him at his dorm room, has been disabled. He was disabled by Sue while she was sneakily giving files to Howard Stark on Tony's mission in Japan. She disabled Homer. Okay, so that's over with. That's done. And then Howard walks away. So now, 6 months later, we get to the racing scene. Now, this racing scene is very important to me. It's the reason why I started this channel on what I do if I could take over the MCU, how I would change it. I was inspired by the Young Turks member Ben Merkowitz, who criticized the racing scene as being a bit inauthentic, unrealistic in the way that was conducted, the way they did it. I hated that racing scene in MCU's Iron Man 2 movie. So let me give you my suggestion of how I would change that to make it make some sense. Instead of Morocco, which was the area of choice for this race, I would choose Cairo. In the real Iron Man 2 movie, Ivan Vanko attacks Tony at Morocco. Tony crashes, Vanko has him dead to rights and just lets him go. In my version, I would have female Whiplash attack Tony Stark. That would be Lena Foreman, who I'm suggesting should be the cousin of Vanko. Now, in the comics, Lena Foreman was female Whiplash 2, and I would like her here in this movie, it being female Whiplash 2. She's the one who attacks Tony Stark in his race. Now, Let me go rewind and go backwards to what's going on here. Change the plan. Let me go forward first and finish this up. She attacks Tony Stark in his race, causes Tony Stark to crash his car. As she moves in to kill Tony Stark, which is why she's there, she's intercepted by War Machine, who lands in front of her, forcing her to retreat. She hops back, she hops away from the scene in her whiplash armor, in the same way Tony Stark would hop around in his Iron Man armor in my suggested Iron Man 1 movie. So instead of Whiplash leaving because this is the plot driving the story, we have something different where the story is driving the plot. She leaves because War Machine showed up and scared her and forced her to retreat. So the audience's intelligence is not made fun of. It's a simple cause and effect situation. No inconvenience, no complex plan. It's just that. Tony Stark is seriously injured. You won't see him until next two scenes later to understand just how badly injured he is. Now, why did this happen? Well, before this scene, Howard Stark introduces his new bodyguard. Enter the War Machine. He lands in place, reveals himself to be James Rhodes to the press, opening press. He's not giving this as a gift to the military because he doesn't want the military or S.H.I.E.L.D. to have that technology. He's presenting him as a distraction to AIM and Zodiac because he doesn't want AIM and Zodiac, who saw the Iron Man armor. He doesn't want them to think that the Iron Man is Tony Stark. He's trying to lead him off that trail with War Machine and the reveal of James Rhodes, which he reveals to the press. So that's what caused Zodiac leader Scorpio to go get Vanko in prison. Vanko. Tom was in prison because Howard Stark put him and his father there when they were working for Russian separatists to build the Crimson Dynamo armor that raided a nuclear facility years ago. So they were put in a Russian prison through the help of Howard Stark. Scorpio knew that. Thanks to AIM, he went to that prison. He freed Anton. Anton accepted a deal from Scorpio. He brought in his cousin, and together they worked on the Whiplash armor, which is what you see in my version of the racing scene. Now, as Tony Stark is shoved away by medical experts, his friend Rhodey, who's wearing the Iron Man armor, which has now been revealed to be James Rhodes, is having a flashback moment to the first days of building that armor and training it. Not training it. Building a prototype version of the Iron Man armor and training with it while wearing prototype scaled down versions of the Iron Man armor. The test integrity, stuff like that. At one point, the armor malfunctions that Tony's wearing and it locks up and he's stuck in there like a person trapped inside his own coffin, alive. And it was Rhodey who gets him out of that mess, that messed up situation. He makes a promise to Tony that he'll always have his back. But then he fast forwards a little bit to the future where he remembers Tony getting kidnapped. He wasn't there to help them. And now this situation where he fast forwards to the present where Tony's now seriously hurt. And now we're going to find out just how bad he's hurt. So Tony is taken to Stark Industries medical facility because Tony is seriously injured. He's paralyzed. And the arc reactor that's protecting him from the shrapnel inching his way to his heart is failing. It's also poisoning him. Copying the original version to some extent, not completely. Since Howard Stark is alive and he's in the care of Yinsen, who we bring back into the story, and his daughter Su Yinsen, they work together to come up with a solution. Howard Stark reaches out to what I was saying and his son to get skin technology tech. He uses that to deal with the walking problem, and as for the arc reactor problem, he uses the same method we saw in the real Iron Man 2 movie. Simple, quick. Su Yinsen and her father heal up all the rest of Tony's wounds, and Tony, before you know it, he's back on his feet. But he's not exactly what he once was because he can't walk. He now has to rely more now than ever on technology to walk because he's paralyzed permanently. If he's not wearing a skin suit, he's using a wheelchair. And of course, he's angry, he's mad, he's upset. He sees his pal Su Yin, who he hasn't seen in a good while. She's got a ring on her finger, which she basically says we all have to move on in our life. We have to grow up sometimes, we have to move on. And she walks away from the situation. We're introduced to Happy Hogan, who's the nurse rehabilitation person who's trying to rehabilitate him, but Tony's resistant towards rehabilitation because he's angry at his current state. He thinks this never had to have been had he just been allowed to be Iron Man and he left alone with his Iron Man project. So we have that frustration. And of course, Howard retreats to another section of his medical company to watch old tapes of Tony when he was younger, and he was sort of trying to teach him to fish while paying more attention to his wife Maria, who was cooking his potatoes in the way that he liked it. Tony, now mastering the skin technology, enters Howard's office as he's watching these videos, and he tells him Maria Stark, his mom, believed that Howard would protect the whole family. She had more faith in him than he did. And then he walks away. And so the audience understands what role Howard Stark played in the Stark family from that one scene. It is later that Howard Stark takes his son, who, instead of using the skin technology to walk around, he takes a wheelchair instead to kind of make his father feel guilty for taking away his precious Iron Man armor away from him a long time ago, which he thinks would have prevented the situation from happening in his first one. So he follows his father to a secret facility within the Stark company. And Howard shows Tony his new Iron Man armor. It's different, and it's designed for him, even with his condition. It's designed to work with his new skin tech to provide him extra mobility and protection. It's also now got a new AI system. Instead of Homer, it now uses Friday. And confused, Tony wants to know what's going on. And basically, he's telling him about his plan to deal with Zodiac and AIM once and for all. So basically, at that moment, War Machine comes in, reveals himself to be James Rhodes. Tony's happy to see him. They hug each other, have their moment, and Rhodes tells the family through Coulson's investigation that they've conducted when they captured Spy Master that both Zodiac and AIM plan to kill Howard at his gala event that he has planned set up. The gala event is basically a lure trap where he's hoping he could use that to lure out Zodiac and AIM so the authorities could find them and capture them and take them out once and for all. But it puts Howard in a target zone where they can take him out. And the way they're going to do that, as James explains, is by reprogramming the Mandroids, which is Howard's gift to the military and S.H.I.E.L.D., and program the Mandroids to kill him at that gala. That's the plan. And well, Howard says, I have a different plan. I invented Friday to reverse that programming. Tony's wondering why he gave his technology to Shield in the military in the first place, and which Howard explains to Tony he did it. He gave them a scaled down version of the Iron Man armor, not even on the level of the Iron Man armor. And the War Machine armor is proprietary. He only loans it to them, but he doesn't loan the schematics of how it works. He just has Rhodey in it, representing the military, and he can use it with them, but they can't break it down to its nanoparts and start mass producing it because Howard forbid that. He's done that because he doesn't like the way they handled the ongoing situation they've been having with AIM and Zodiac, which he believes led to his wife's death. So that's the plan. So Howard goes to the gala, and we get the Mandroids scene that we saw in the real MCU Iron Man 2. They go crazy, but not crazy in the sense that they're just shooting all over the place. They're trying to aim for Stark, but then Iron Man and War Machine intervene. Friday tries to hack the Mandroids, and that's when they go crazy. The program that Howard created to try and recontrol the Mandroid situation doesn't quite work out the way he expected, and then they go crazy as a result of that. In the chaos process, Whiplash 2, piloted this time by Von Vankoff, arrives in the scene. He uses the distraction to pull out a pistol and shoot Howard. There's a personal scene between Howard and Tony, who's holding on to Howard at the last minutes of his death, in which he says, "I am sorry. I tried to be the best father I could to you, Tony," as who he's talking to. "Everything I did for you and for your protection. Now you're on your own. It's time for you to start making your own decisions. Please finish school at MIT. Trust only James," and then he dies. Friday finally gains control of the Mandroids as they fire long-range tracking missiles at Rhodey, which Iron Man takes care of. Situation resolved. Then the address from the Mandroids. So the pings your address of Whiplash's location where he's staying at. That was stored in the database of the Mandroids, and he pings it back to his location and follows that information back to his home to confront Von Vankoff. Hopes that he would lead to AIM and Zodiac. There's a confrontation at Von Vankoff's mansion. And it's that point that Lena uses that line, "Whip Iron Man," which she does. She puts her whips on him and tries to pull him one side. On Vankoff, on in his armor, so they were both wearing Whiplash armors, he whips him another side. So they both have whips on Iron Man, and they're trying to pull him apart in opposite directions. And it's that moment, the next scene is Iron Man activates his wrist weapon device. The same device he used in the Iron Man 2, and he cuts them down, killing them. He then has this scene at the end where he tells them, he puts out a message, a long band, a message, a wideband frequency that he knows can be picked up easily by AIM and Zodiac, telling them they're next. Okay, that's it for what I would do if I were running things behind the Iron Man MCU movie. I hope you enjoyed my suggestions. Tune in next time for my next entry of if I had the power to time travel, take over the MCU, how would I remake it?